Hello, welcome back to Attic to Basement Estate Cleanouts. I seem to have a summer cold or something, sinus problem, so please bear with me. This week I wanted to talk about a man who lived until his 96th year in Northeast Washington, D.C. He died in July of 2007, and I was called to assess the job in October. It was a small home, and one day I had 2 helpers, and another day I had 1 helper work with me for 1.5 hours. And the final day I met the auction company for 2.5 hours, and then we were done. All the clothing was gone when we started this job. The person was very religious and had statues of the Blessed Virgin and the Last Supper painting, along with a Jesus candle. They also had an antique sofa with plastic covers, which must have been cold to sit on in the winter and sticky in the summer. There are still houses in Washington, D.C. that don't have air conditioning. There were many pretty McCoy planters and dolls. The taller of the 2 dolls I had as a child myself. There was some interesting glassware. A photo of a painted picture along with a dial telephone follows this. There was also Wedgwood dishes, comic books, and 2 dome clocks. I think this person was making do with their original furniture until it broke down, and only then would they replace it. The next house I was clearing out was a condo in Rockville. I'd lived in the building myself 9 years earlier, and the same woman was working on the front desk as when I lived there, and she remembered me. I was recommended by a social worker to the nephew. The nephew told me not to talk to the neighbors, tell them I don't know anything. I'm not sure why he was being extra cautious. I often had people ask me in the yard or hallway of jobs if I was the daughter of the deceased. I would just say, no, I wasn't. I was hired by the family or the attorney. I would never let anyone into a home. When I had lived in the building, people stayed to themselves, but I only stayed there 6 months. More times than you might think, a neighbor would knock on the door of a house while we were working and say they were just checking on the house because they knew the homeowner had died. They wanted to make sure I wasn't robbing the place. That was okay until they tried to walk into the house. I physically had to place myself in the doorway with my hand on the door frame to make it clear they could not come in. Usually, they were just being nosy. If they were good friends with the deceased, they had already been in the house while the person was alive and knew what was there. It was the nosy ones who thought this was their chance to look around. Twice I had people barge in and walk around. It's much harder to get them out once they come in than to keep them out at the doorway. This person did have a lot crammed in the condo. The walk-in entry closet was full of art they had painted, some of which was framed and some was not. There was a piano, which luckily the family wanted to keep, along with the sheet music and records, so I didn't have to deal with that. There was a Shirley Temple picture. I saw only 1 set like this over 15 years. There was also a Gone with the Wind Scarlett O'Hara doll, which the person had pinned information onto the skirt, which was good. I may not have spotted that, as it was not in a box. Some things went to auction and some to charity. I heard that at auction they got $1,000. There was some medical equipment like walkers that went to the Kensington Fire Department, which was nearby. This job took 5 days, but only the first workday was over 5 hours long. Someone asked me about business insurance. I never had to use it, no claims were put against it, but it gave executors peace of mind when I told them I had it. No one quite knew how to classify an estate cleanout business. I was listed under cleaning services with one company and window cleaning that had a combination trash hauling by another. I started out with one insurance company, but the rates rose every year until I switched to another company. Those rates doubled in just a couple of years. In the final company I bought business insurance from, the owner had a wife who was a financial organizer and understood better what I was doing in the houses I worked in. But that insurance was also getting quite expensive by the time I sold the business in 2015. I was asked if I was bonded, and I never did get that. It was very expensive, and I have been told by residential organizers that you had to be sued and found guilty of theft or something before anyone could collect from the policy. Thanks for watching. I hope if you have any questions about estate cleanouts, you'll write them in the comments section. Please subscribe so you can be notified when the next episode is uploaded. Click like if you think this was worthwhile.